So the Wranglerstar subscribers have spoken, and I have heard loud and clear, and I couldn't agree more. We want to see some of the construction stuff. We want to see the different tools used, because that is an essential part of homesteading. And I agree. I didn't think so at first because I just hadn't thought about it. But any smart homesteader is not going to go into debt to get their homestead, which means if you're not going to go into debt, you're not going to spend a lot of money on a property, and that means you're going to be fixing it up yourself. So having the tools and the ability to do those things, you can always save money. How I always look at it is that if I can do a job myself and not have to hire a tradesman or a contractor to do it, then I can justify going and spending the money on the professional tools that I need to get the job done. Because then not only do I get the job done for a lot cheaper, but I get to keep the tools afterwards. One of the most essential tools that you're going to want to invest in is a proper tool belt. So what does a proper tool belt consist of? Well, there's 5 parts to it. And if you want to buy the very best, and this is what I would recommend, is the Occidental Leather Company. They are handmade tool belts. They've been making them in the States forever. And that love and care and attention to detail that you saw in the Nick's Boots video is what you're going to find with the Occidental brand. Now, there's all different types of tool belts, and whether you're doing remodeling or framing, it's always going to vary. There's a very distinct way you lay them out. Left hand, right side is different. The nice thing about the Occidental Company, which is what I have here, these tool belts I bought when I was a teenager. And these tool belts, because I take care of them, will last me for the rest of my life. I'll never have to buy another set. But left and right, if you're a lefty, they even configure their bags for that. So you can buy them. So you can buy them in a configuration however you want. The parts are going to include this. You're going to have bags left and right. You're going to have a hammer loop on the back. You're going to have a really heavy, sturdy belt. And then I would really recommend a pair of suspenders. Let's break them down here. So the way the tools are laid out, it's very, I guess it's kind of scientific, because you lay them out so you can work very quickly and efficiently. A good pair of bags like this is an investment. It's going to cost you right around, if you get it equipped with everything, right around $300, which sounds like a lot of money. But if you're a homesteader and you're remodeling or you're building something and you're going to be in your bags 10, 12 hours a day, it is a very, very small price to pay. Not to mention that when you have them in 20, 30 years, 40 years, they're going to be there and you can rely upon them. When I grew up, I talk about essential tools, things that every man needs to have. When I grew up in a really tight-knit religious community, and when someone needed a roof or someone needed a house built, it was very common on the weekend for 20, 30 of the men in the community to show up, not unlike the Amish, kind of a modern day version of that, and pitch in and jump in and do that type of work. Everyone that I knew had a nail bag like this. So what you could do, so when your buddy called you and say, hey, I need you to help me frame up my house, or I need you to come over, would you come over and help me build a pump house? All you had to do was to grab your tool bag and maybe a skill saw, and you were set. Everything that you need to do basic construction and building needs to be set up in this bag, and you can easily do that. So when you grab it, you know everything that's there, and you're ready to work. You can actually be a help to someone, and you don't have to run around looking for everything. So what's in the bag? All right, well, the left-hand side, let's start with that. We're going to go with the tools that are essential, things that you really want to have, and just some things to consider. Again, the role is going to change for your bags depending on what you're doing. If you're doing drywall, it's going to change. If you're going to do remodeling, it's going to change. Electrical, all of those things. But as a general rule, what I'm doing right now, doing demo and framing, this is going to be a really good package. So on the left-hand bag, the first thing we're going to start with, and you're going to have a loop here, this is a tool called a cat's paw. And in the next video, I'm going to demonstrate how each one of these works. This is a tool, a small pry bar that you're going to use for removing nails. Also, on the left-hand side, if you're right-handed, you're going to have a speed square. This is an absolutely essential tool to have. You're going to use it for squaring studs. You're going to use it for marking. You're going to have it in your hands hundreds of times a day. It's one of the most fantastic tools that you're going to come by. Now, back in the day, and my tool belt reflects this because it is an old one. I think this is kind of an old-fashioned thing, the old combination square, and there's actually a dedicated spot right there in it. I don't know if the new tool belts are going to have that. I think that they probably will. You can carry this around. However, you got to be careful not to put too much in your bags. You need to be athletic. You need to be able to climb up ladders and crawl through floor joists. And every time you have something like this hanging down, it's a nuisance and it catches on things. I find that it's not necessary to carry my tool belts. I can have that in the toolbox and come pick it up later. Another thing that there's a dedicated pocket for is going to be a small level. This is really handy for lots of things. Even if you're doing plumbing or electrical, you can level boxes. You can, if you're doing small pony walls, you can level things up. It fits in little spots, torpedo level, fits in spots where you're not going to have room for your big 4-foot framing level. In this bag also what's essential, whether you buy an Occidental bag or not, is make sure that it has a dedicated place for the speed bag or for the speed square, which this does. Really clever. It gets out of your way because having this sitting loose in a bag, it's always falling out. And what you want is a good set of bags. One of the big differences between these and many of your cheaper, like your Home Depot bags, is just the design of it. They're designed not to spill. They won't dump things. When you're climbing up over a ladder, you don't have something, you're up 2 stories and something falls down on someone's head, or you'd have to just waste time and go down there and aggravation of getting it. So having a dedicated spot for that, to me, would be critical. You're going to have a Sharpie and a nail set is really handy for lots of things. And then this particular bag has a small pocket on the top, which I use. Some people put their chalk box in there, but I use it for all the little bits and different things that I'm going to need, usually for my drill bits or my drill guns. I like to have sharp pencils, so I have a dedicated one of these sharpeners because it's so lightweight that sharpens the big fat carpenter's pencils. And you can just twist this a few times. You always have a nice sharp edge, and it's just quicker and simpler than using your utility knife. It's not essential, it's just a luxury item that doesn't take up much space. Also in this pocket, I'm going to keep the myriad drill bits and different things that I'm going to use when I'm swapping between my cordless drill. The use of the new Torx screws and the impact drivers have really changed carpentry and framing. And I think most people, like myself, especially on this job, have gotten away from nails and nail guns. I have all of those things, the nail guns, but I find that framing with the screws is so much better and so much nicer. It's more controlled. You get a better job. You're not breaking out, destroying wood. And the nice thing is if you're like me and you don't do this all the time, it's nice to have the ability to undo something. You can take the screws out if you made a mistake, or even if you just changed your mind, and not have to be pulling nails and destroying studs and all of that. So I'm going to keep in here a number 3 bit, a flat one, a drill if I need to drill a little pilot hole, and then a number 2 Phillips. So anything that I'm going to run across, I don't have to stop what I'm doing. I can simply reach in there and change that. Also, your left-hand bag, if you're right-handed, is going to keep your fasteners, whatever you're using. I'm using the Torx screws, the 3-inch Torx screws for framing. This is going to be my primary thing. I'm going to be reaching in with my left hand, and I'm going to be pulling the nail or the screw out and then applying it in with my right hand. In the main compartment here, I'll have my secondary. If I'm using 16-penny nails or screws or whatever, this is going to be my primary bag because it's just convenient for me to use and easy access, easy to get to. So for the left-hand side, now this, or the right-hand side, now this is primarily where you're going to have your tools. If you're right-handed, again, this is where you're going to be reaching for your tape measure. On the outside bag, now this particular bag and the new ones are going to come with a little pocket right here on the top. I did not like that. Some people put their tape measure in there. I find it kind of unhandy and it sticks out and it's in the way and I can't access the rest of the tools. So what I end up doing is I have a dedicated tape measure and I'm going to keep that in the right hand side where I can get at, because this is a tool that I'm going to be reaching probably more than almost anything, and I want it right there in a primary position. In the right hand side and the tool side, we're going to have a chalk box. This is a very versatile tool. You can use it for snapping lines, especially if you're working by yourself and you're working with sheet goods and plywoods. You can even use it for a plumb bob. Most people don't know this, but the way it's shaped and the way it's designed, you can use it for a plumb bob. You can use it for a straight line. Of all the things, there's lasers and all those things. Everything that you can do with those, you can do with this. It's just the poor man's version. Because I'm working here on the remodel and it's so dark and the electrical's not all done, I'm going to keep a flashlight in here because I need to be able to see things and inspect things. So that has been really important for me. Another key item is a good utility knife. That's going to be just a regular drywall style knife with something that'll hold extra blades inside. I'm going to have 2 carpenter's pencils. And the placement of these pencils is really important because if they're sticking out, if they're on outside compartments, whenever you go by an extension cord, you go by a wall, they're constantly broken off and all you do is spend all day sharpening. So having these, because they're a little bit fragile, tucked in close to your body, they're on the right hand side, I can reach down and get them. And I'm going to carry 2 because if I break one off or one's not sharp, I want to be able to keep moving and not to get bogged down. So I'm going to carry 2 pencils right there on the inside compartment. A beater chisel. This is not, you're not going to keep when you're doing your framing, your really nice Stanley chisels and the ones you put your nice edges for fine woodworking in. This is just a chisel that I made out of an old file and pounded an old screwdriver handle on it, and I'm just going to be using it for rough service. I'm going to be hitting it with a hammer, I'm going to be cutting nails. It's just a blunt instrument that's going to be just used for prying and all different types of tasks. I'm carrying a drywall knife because I'm working on a remodel, new construction. This is not something you're going to do in framing. That's kind of an extra thing. And I'm going to be carrying a chisel, putty knife for just scraping little things off. If I'm putting subfloor down and there's a little piece of liquid nails or a little something like that, it's nice to have a little chisel poking in things. Lots of different reasons to have that. And I also carry an extra Sawzall blade. This is really good for remodeling. So there's going to be a wood blade that's going to be in the Sawzall, but sometimes I need to cut through a nail and I'm up on a ladder. I don't want to have to go back downstairs and go find a blade. I've always got it. I can quickly swap it and put the other one back in here and carry it that way. The last thing on the back on your belt is going to be your hammer loop. Now, there is a loop for hammers. You're going to be on your tool belt, which is right here in the front. I don't like these. I find them to be unhandy. They take 2 hands to get in and out. And if I'm holding something up and I need my hammer to knock a stud into position or something like that, the last thing I want to do is to stop what I'm doing and to take my hand down so I can get my hammer out of a stupid hammer loop. It's inconvenient. This is a far better way, having this on the small of your back. And once you get a little bit better and more practiced with it, you can easily reach back. It's always, because it's got that metal ring in there, you can put it in one-handed. And so you free up that hand, which is really essential. So having a hammer loop like that is, for me, is a must-have. Now your belt, again, if you buy a set of Occidental bags, of course, I would recommend you get their belt. Is going to be, you want a nice, big, heavy, rigid belt. Even more rigid than you're going to have for your gun belt. These are not unlike a weightlifter's belt because they need to support all that leather and they need to not to bend down, and you've got a lot of weight in the tool, so you need a super substantial belt. And these are really comfortable when worn with suspenders. When I was young and doing carpentry and framing and such, all the old guys wore suspenders, and the young guys, we thought we were too cool for that, and so we would, just wear the belt. But it's hard on your back, and you have to wear it so tight, it messes up circulation, and that's why suspenders are so nice. And I think another thing is the older guys, you get a bit of a kind of a beer belly going on, and your belts don't stay up so well, so I think maybe it's a necessity too, but it's much more comfortable. I've went to wearing the suspenders, and you can keep your belt loose around your waist. It gives you more flexibility, and your shoulders carry the weight of the tool bags, which get pretty heavy when you load them all up. So a good belt is absolutely essential. Suspenders too. Now you can get Occidental brand suspenders, which are going to be much better than these, or purpose-built leather type of suspenders. But the heavy-duty logger suspenders that you can buy online from Madson's or wherever, they work great. They just clip on. I've had these on here for years. I almost prefer the stretchy over the fixed leather ones, because as you move and as you bend over to cut something on the ground, they stretch with you and they don't lift your bags up, and they move better with you, and they're simple to use. You can just clip them on. They're big, heavy clips, and once you kind of start using them, you can see here, you know, you get a little indentation right there, so you always get them in the right spot. Snap those on there, but get yourself some suspenders. It's a much better way to work. So that pretty much wraps up the tool belt and kind of the philosophy behind it. In the next video, we'll go over each tool and I'll show you why I've chosen it for the kit, why I carry it, and what its role is in construction.
Did you just sit through a 16-minute video on tool belts? Well, my hat's off to you. You are a Wranglerstar Uber subscriber. So I know you're going to ask, I always get questions about this. Where do I get these items? Which items do you recommend? What I'll do is I will create a page called Tool Belt, and I'll put all the items that I recommend, what I think is the best bang for the buck, where you can visit at wranglermart.com. You can go over there and take a look at it. Now, I know things are expensive and times are tough for lots of folks, but the acquiring of these tools is important. You don't necessarily have to buy them new. I would recommend you just take down the list or make a list from this video series. Start looking for them. Probably more than half the things you can find at your own place or your dad's place, or anybody who's been in carpentry or construction for any time has got multiples of these, so you don't need to spend a lot of money for this stuff. What I would spend the money on, though, is I would buy myself a good pair of Occidental tool belts. One thing I didn't cover in this, I saw in the edit, was hammers, which I'll cover in the next video. And also I want to talk a little bit about leather versus the composite, or not the composite, what is it? The Cordura bags. The reason why I didn't buy the leather is because it's rainy here, and if you are in an environment where you're going to be working outside, that leather soaks up the water and gets exceedingly heavy. So the nylon bags were a little bit better, and they're a little bit lighter. So that was the reason for that. So something to consider. So if you'd like to see this list of tools, go to wranglermart.com. And if you haven't already take a moment to click the thumbs up, I appreciate that. Subscribe if you'd like to follow the channel. And the next video, we're going to break down these things, and I'll show you a few tips and tricks on how they're used and why I choose them. All right, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next video.